Hi guys, Pete the Wargamer here, back with another Flames of War painting tutorial. In this guide, I'll be showing you how to paint a US Bradley IFV in a Desert MERDC scheme, and I'll be making use of the Vallejo range of paints to do so. Before we start painting, we first of all need to apply a primer so that the later layers of paint properly adhere to the miniature's surface. For this, I've chosen to use a black primer, as this will help to create shading in the recesses when we start to dry brush on the camouflage scheme. To apply the base colour of the camouflage scheme and to bring out the details of the tank surface quickly and easily, we'll be applying a dry brush of US Desert Armour. Dry brushing works by loading up a fairly large brush with some paint before wiping it onto a tissue or a piece of paper. Now that will remove the excess as well as working the paint through the bristles. We only want a small amount of paint to remain in them. With your dry brush ready, quickly drag it across the whole miniature with some broad strokes. You will notice that paint will start to accumulate onto the edges and flat surfaces, but not into the deeper recesses. When applied over the black, the result is some instant shading, which helps to bring out those details. You may have noticed that the paint I'm using here is an airbrush paint, but really that doesn't matter. It just means that the paint is a little thinner than normal, but this is actually quite helpful to us, and the result will be a smoother application. Apply a couple of good coats here to get a solid starting colour. Continuing with the same dry brushing technique as before, I will next be applying some aged white. However, this time around, we want to apply less pressure than before, so that the paint only accumulates onto the raised details of the model. This lighter colour will help to boost the contrast between the shadows and the details and make the model look that much more detailed. You will also notice that I'm focusing mainly on the upper parts of the model, which we would expect to be the brightest. With our base colours applied, we can begin to work on the camouflage scheme. Begin by taking some US Field Drab and thinning it down with a little medium or some water, creating a mixture of equal quantities. With this, we can begin to tackle the main bulk of the scheme, which will consist of irregular stripes of brown across the tank's surface. Start by outlining the camouflage pattern. Painting on the lines that form the boundary of the pattern is much quicker and will allow you to see your patterns and how they look before you commit to filling them in. Just some light outlines are all you need for this step. Once you are happy with those lines, you can start to fill in the areas between them using the same thinned mixture as before. With this step, you don't need complete coverage. It's okay if you can still see the lighter and darker areas through the paint, as this will help to maintain the shading we created with the dry brushing. Next, we'll be adding some yellowish brown to the camouflage scheme. This time, we'll be painting smaller thin lines adjacent to the US Field Drab. However, don't completely line the brown patches, just keep them to small sections. Now that we have a start on the whole camouflage, we can next move on to applying some colour to the smaller details. The first of these are the metal track links, and for this I'll be using flat brown. This brown colour will give the tracks a dirty, dusty and slightly rusted appearance, which we can build upon later in the tutorial. Across the tank there will be several areas of dark metal and rubber. These will include some of the secondary weapons, tow cables, stowage items and the rubber trim of the road wheels. We want to apply a base coat of black grey to all of these areas, thinning the paint in the same way as before. This dark grey colour will allow us to benefit from a black wash later on, something that a pure black wouldn't. In addition to the details, we'll be also using this paint to apply some gull wing patterns to the camouflage. These three-pronged thin lines of near black should surround parts of the brown edges. You can also use this paint to apply some damage to the paintwork. Take a small piece of sponge, dip it into the black grey and remove the excess onto a piece of paper until only a small amount of paint remains on it. You can then lightly dab this over the hull, which will leave behind small flecks of darker paint, creating the appearance that paint has been chipped away. I should note that once your base coats are completed, this is the best time to apply any decals. This allows any later weathering created by further washes or dry brushing to be applied over those markings too, which helps to improve realism. With all of the base coats completed, we can now start to apply some washes. These are great for adding and boosting the visibility of details as they will flow into the recessed areas and create the appearance of shadows. The first wash we'll be applying in this way is Sepia Wash, but straight out of the pot. It'll be a little too strong, especially for a lighter scheme like this one. So we first need to water it down a little. Mix water into your wash until you have a consistency similar to what you see here. With your wash thinned, we next want to apply it in a much more localized and targeted way compared to other tank guides that I've produced. Using a fairly small brush, I will be directly applying some of the sepia wash into some of the details of the hull. Once dried, you'll find that those small details will stand out much more than they did before, and that the tank will have a slightly dirty and weathered appearance too. The next wash to apply is black wash, thinned in the same manner as before. This time, we will be applying it as an all-over wash to any black-grey details and also the tracks. After allowing the washes to dry fully, the model is almost complete. However, we can add some extra detail and weathering to the vehicle in the form of a dark sand dry brush. By focusing this application around the bottom of the side skirts and the tracks, we help to create the appearance that dust and dirt churned up by the tracks has settled on these areas of the vehicle. And here we have the completed Bradley IFV. Now, whilst I focused on just one specific vehicle in this video, you could easily apply the same colours and techniques to other US vehicles using that Desert MERDC scheme as well. You can find a full list of all the paints used in this video in the description below, along with any other equipment that I've used to create this as well. If you enjoyed this video, please do let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to be kept up to date with all of my latest videos, and check out my Discord, which you can find a link to in the description. And so the only thing left to say is, thanks for watching, and goodbye.